Hey guys, and welcome back. So if you've seen the little update video I did, I'm kind of in the process of trying to clean, readjust, and reorganize a bunch of my stuff. And part of that is a bunch of Trinitrons I picked up throughout the years since I've started this whole thing. Now, these things might be a little messy, and unfortunately, with some moving situations and stuff, not all these will be in the best location or with the best video angle or anything, best ideal lighting or anything. But I need to look through these, finally find some homes for some of them, kind of do basic overviews in general. I've been putting off for way too long. So without further ado, I do have an 80s model that was donated by Jerome a few years ago. I didn't really get much of a chance to use it just because when he brought it, I set it aside and had other things to deal with. And unfortunately it's just sat here since then. When I did turn it on, it did work okay, so I assume it's still fine. It looks like somehow the one leg broke off. So like I mentioned, there is a leg right here. There should have been one here. I don't remember it being missing at all. I don't know if when we moved some stuff late last year, unfortunately, because my mom passed, if that got broken at all, I don't think. And then it looks like this front little door cover, one of the pieces broke, so that will not stay up like it was intended, which is a shame. Besides that, when I did test it, it seemed okay. It is a bit dirty from being in here for a while, plus I never peeled off this paid sticker that Jerome got on it. I forget where he got it. I think it was an estate sale. So, I'm going to wipe it down a little bit, get a little cleaned. Probably not move it too much because I do not have a table out here that can solidly hold it. So, give me a second or two to do that. Alright guys, so you might notice I'm not where I started. I started to do it, but that little stand was getting a little wobbly, and I did not want to risk it. And I did have one of the 80s, or not 80s, like, these is one of the 90s stands for Sony Trinitrons for 32 inches. So that was big enough to cover the whole thing. I set it on there for now. It's a lot more stable, and unfortunately I'm worried about these stands because there was water that came up through the ground here. So I'm not sure if the stands will be okay. I'll probably have to try to scrub off the mold off the bottom and hope that it's only surface level. Please, for my sake, wish that they are to surface level. So, I'm going to continue wiping it down. This also gives me a better angle, and then we have the XPR 960 as the backdrop. That is my favorite HD set of all time. At least consumer set. I haven't had any access to any PVMs that are HD. So, let's get back to it. Alright, unfortunately that sticker is a little rougher than I thought. I'm going to have to probably get some rubbing alcohol or nail polish remover to get that sucker off there. A nail polish remover is super strong. I actually used that to remove some really strong thermal paste stuck to original Xbox when I reheated it. So I might need that for that, just because how rough it is. I'm also feeling a little upset that both the leg is missing over there and then the front panel thing is not popping on. Because for being an 80s unit, this is in immaculate condition. This is probably one of the nicer sets I assume that was available to people in the 80s. I have not looked up details, and if I remember, I'll try to find a price sheet and insert it up in the corner. If I don't, then I don't. But just the fact that this was stereo in a time when stereo television audio was just becoming a thing, or had become a thing, I'm going to guess it wasn't super cheap. Now the real test. Funny enough, this one has a kind of brownish power cable. It doesn't really match the rest of the look of the system. It's more an 80s thing, and my power extender is an 80s brown power extender. Alright, let me try to move this so it doesn't dangle too much in the way. And I saw a standby light turn on. That is a good sign. Put our power on because it's been years. This thing probably does need adjusted. I don't know how easy it is to pop off the back yet. So the front panel, we have the standard things. We have power, swap between AV and RF. We do have a... Okay, that's the timer. Timer, standard volume, and channel controls. There is no analog video out here, so I'm not going to bother with that. So down here, we do have things to adjust everything.
This is the kind of stuff that would be available in menu. Main both. Oh, I think that's the swap between languages. MTB, I'm unsure what that means. Auto stereo, there's stereo adjustments, speaker adjustments for left and right. Because a lot of people in America were not actually... Well, a decent amount of stuff was still mono. Sharpness adjustment, brightness, color adjustment, hue adjustment. Picture. Oh, the picture adjustment that's built on. There's a switch for cable off and on. Huh. If I can, I'll try to find the manual for this as well. The speakers do look like they're a decent size for their era. Might be a little hard to see with the current camera angle, but they're probably bigger than any, well, at least as big as any speaker that you would see on a modern TV. Now, due to my current lighting, this might not be that well seen. Luckily, the camera seems to be doing okay. You have some of the standard labels and info in the back into the plastic mold. You actually have not one, but two things to tuck up. The power cable if you were to move it around, which those are a godsend. One thing I want to mention is that I think a decent chunk of American sets that I might have had when I was younger, I don't think they had those. So moving them was a lot much, it was a pain. I'm hot, so excuse me if this isn't the most coherent video. So, the inputs are simple. What I do like is that we have audio out. So if you had home stereo system back in the day, you could just plug this into the stereos. I do have a receiver from the 80s that would go wonderful for the set, except for it has a weird issue where the volume knob is kind of dirty. I have to clean it and kind of set everything up. If I'm ever able to get a bigger place to kind of set this up as my 80s setup, I'll probably pair the two and then look for some 80s Sony speakers if I can find them. You have the standard VHF, UHF, RF input. The coaxial, those mostly used for cable TV or for antenna / satellite at some point. In the 80s, I doubt anybody had satellite. I'm not aware of it. Then standard composite video in. Mono audio for left channel or else stereo RCA. This looks like it's pretty much composite only. Unfortunately, this is not an S-video set. That would have been dope if it was. That probably would have been a high-end set. So here's some more info you might want to know. This model is a KV-27TS20, so it's a 27-inch one, and this was manufactured in May 1989. That's neat. 160 watts max. It's a 60 hertz set because we're in North America. AC 120 volt, also common in the US. Alright, so since the PlayStation wasn't quite a thing yet, the MSX Hitbit Sony computer / game system in Japan was not coming here. I don't have one. I also don't want to use a VCR and a VHS just because the nature of things being weird with video and audio on that end, and I do not have any working Betamax players. The best thing I can think of to kind of pair with this that I have at the moment is a Sega Genesis. So I'm going to grab that, and then I'm going to grab some nail polish remover, try to remove that paid sticker, and we'll see how it looks. So a little note, and I hope that you guys watch these videos all the way through before you do anything I say, but I did try nail polish remover on that, but it seems corrosive enough that we'll start to eat a little bit on the surface layer of the plastic. So that's a bad idea. Don't do that. I learned. The set also was having some video jumps, and I hear a little bit of pitch. The unit definitely needs some service. Yeah, it looks like that created a little layer. You can see where I tried to do that, so you can feel it too. Man, that is a mistake I'm glad I did not do on something in better condition. Well, you learn. I did test the audio, so even though the video seems to be jumping a little bit, we will play something to see if the speakers are okay. I'm going to go with artist Dan Mason. He is a vaporwave artist and I like his music, plus he is completely fine with people using his music as long as you give him credit. So, we will play a little bit of this track just to make sure the speakers work okay. And I think there is stereo separation going on. You can actually toggle the speakers on and off with that lever. So if you do have a setup where it goes out to an AV receiver, you can do that instead. That's really nice. I like that feature. Alright, the speakers are in fine condition. Now I just gotta find my Genesis system and we're gonna hook that up. So while I have the chance, I'm going to talk about this. One thing that's kind of a pain with the Sega Genesis whole series and the Model 2, Model 1 in general is these power bricks can be annoying. Someone recently found out that you can wire, and I'm sorry for the cables being kind of weird and out of the way, you can wire the PlayStation 2 power adapter to be a multi-use brick for all the Sega Genesis models. You can literally use one PlayStation 2 Slim, that is, PlayStation 2 Slim power adapter, wire it up so it can power both the Sega Genesis Model 2, the 32X, and also the Sega CD Model 2, and I believe the Sega Genesis Model 1 / Mega Drive, all that. I won't go into details on that. That is something I'm going to look to do, because using these bricks is a pain. I do not trust a majority of third-party power supplies. Some could be okay or temporarily fine, but most of them are just hot garbage that will eventually short out your system. And with the way things are going, nobody's taking care of these systems anymore to kind of keep them around, to kind of preserve them. They just dump them and say that's that. So I'm going to keep my systems as long as I can. To mess with this, we're just going to use Sonic 2. I did notice some jumping earlier with the image. I think that might have just been the unit kind of warming up after no use for a while. Things kind of getting realigned. We'll see if it persists at all while I play a little bit. Man, I really wish this was the set I had back in the day, though. If this is what we used in the early 90s to play Genesis, that would have been dope. Still remember playing my older brother's Genesis with Sonic and Sonic 2. This is running a third-party composite cable for reference. I can kind of tell, but nothing seems bad. Nothing seems terrible on the tube itself. I see some small geometry issues, but just because of its age and everything, that's kind of to be expected. It most likely should need some servicing, and it would benefit from it. But compared to most of the stuff I used growing up, this is completely acceptable. This is completely fine, and much better than some other sets I've seen in the day. Got him. Please accept my apology that the cable was in the line of sight. I don't think I have an easy way to tuck this away for now. But man, I like the image actually. So, I do have something a little better to actually test this, but man, I just had to do that for a little bit. We do have the 240p test suite, and you can kind of see on this main menu there are some issues. I have not updated this in a little bit, so this is not the most up-to-date version for the Genesis. Possibly at the time of this recording or after it, most likely. It does look a little blurry. Yep, it does need some work. Aw man, the famous Sega color bands. Looks like a rainbow. Ghost in the Shell. Oh man, the Sonic 2 test. That always gets me. Gives me a feeling that I can't explain. I guess center would just be mono for this. There are different modes that the Genesis could actually output. Oh man. 480i is getting a weird flicker look. I'm not going to mess with PAL stuff. This is an NTSC set. There's the overscan set. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to bother with video options. Linearity tests. Another reason I don't want to really mess with any of the adjustments is right now I don't have any proper equipment to kind of resituate stuff. And if you get a U set, I doubt it's going to be in perfect geometry. These units are from the 80s. Most likely if you get one that wasn't from someone that actually collects vintage CRTs or anything, or services them, it will not be serviced. It will probably be off-knee calibrated regardless. Some people do ask me about repairs. I just don't have the means to do those right now. And I feel like this is a more accurate representation of what you most likely will pick up randomly from an estate sale, a curb, or whatever's available in your region. My region, I do not have really like any thrift stores that would have any CRTs. Every once in a while something will slip through and I'll see something okay, but I think the last thing I saw was a decent Toshiba that I didn't end up getting. Someone else got it, so. Alright guys, so there you have it. The KV-27TS20. This is an 80s model. It gets my approval. I like it. Unfortunately it does need some work, and unfortunately it has seen some damage. It's a shame. This would have been beautiful as an 80s whole setup. So without further ado, I think I'm going to end it there, guys. Thanks for tuning in and watching. I hope you have a good time wherever time it is where you're at or whenever you watch this. Stay safe, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.